Hey, it's MA again. And I'm sitting on my floor with a pile of books, and it's the same day as I recorded a review of another book this morning, and it's the same day, but I changed my shirt, so I'm just going to be honest. And I'm going to review or talk about, I don't want to call it a review. It's just like my personal experience. I hope my other review didn't come off too negative. I just want people to know what's in these books so they can decide if they're right for them. And the one I reviewed yesterday, the Tarot Apothecary book, is a book that when I first read it, I thought it wasn't for me, and now I found out that it is. And I understand maybe for some people that already have like a more developed aromatherapy practice, maybe it's going to be a little too redundant for them. But anyway, I just feel like because the contents of these books are not so accessible to get a tone of what's in them, that's why I'm doing this with the books that I already have. So today we're going to talk about Modern Magic by Devin Hunter, that I think on Instagram is Mr. Devin Hunter. And I wish I could remember why exactly I purchased this. I think it was for multiple reasons. Certainly, I probably got one of those famous Llewellyn emails with the 30 to 40% off titles that, that's when I tend to bring books in. I had been listening to a podcast by Devin Hunter, and I also realized that most, I would say 85 to 90% of the books that I have are written by women. And I really wanted to branch out. I had heard, Devin's voice on the podcast, and I wanted to learn more. And although this is a book that I'm not going to keep, I think it's really good for certain people, and we're going to get into that. And, one of the reasons is I'm not a real seasoned practitioner, but because I'm a seasoned, aka older human, I'm pretty open about my practice in most situations. And honestly, people come and ask me questions. Sometimes they have kids or, someone in their life that's involved and, with tarot or witchy stuff. And, they have a little, they want to know more or they want recommendations about books. So some of the books that I say that I'm not going to keep, I don't feel like they were a waste, because this one in particular is one I feel like I could recommend to certain people, because I think it would be good for a certain audience. So this book, here's one of the things that's just not my scene, but also I wanted to read a book that fell into this category. This book is very slick. It's very Instagram worthy. This is a paperback, but it's got a lot of photographs, and it's got the kind of photographs that aren't really, doing illustrative work. Now, some of them are instructional, but some of them are just pretty. And, as someone of my age and generation, that's not necessarily my thing, but it is a little bit of a slick looking book. And sometimes that can be a little bit of a warning to say maybe there's not substance. So I'm just going to get right to what I think is the strong point and a good audience for this book. If you have a younger person or someone asking for a book for a younger person, especially if that younger person is male or non-binary, especially if they're queer, although, I'm not going to say this is a queer book, but the author is. If you're looking for a book that can be recommended that is very responsible, and I'm using that word all the time, like this is like responsible magic. This is magic of personal power, but also personal responsibility and personal practice and having to do the work. And, if you have young people in your life that maybe are ingesting a lot of things through memes and TikTok, I think this is a good bridge into something a little more serious. So let me give you some concrete examples. I mean, I really enjoyed reading this. Again, it was a little slick, and sometimes these more young-driven books will do things like, why is this picture here? Why is there an inset with a purple font? But that's me being an older person going like, give me the facts. So the way this book is set up There's a couple of chapters. Oh God, I should have tabbed things. I'm so bad. About, you know, first steps, what is magic made of? And it really is pretty direct. And let me go into one of the other chapters. You know, what are correspondences? A correspondence is an object or existing archetype that carries a similar energy signature to what we are trying to achieve. I mean, everything as you read it is very distilled. There's like not a lot of BS in here, which I thought was so refreshing. And so there's a couple of general chapters that takes up the first about 80 to 85 pages of the book, just talking generally about magic and having a magical practice. And then this is what I also thought was great. There are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 chapters that each have a very specific spell. In one for love magic, healing magic, protection magic, and prosperity magic. Now, I've read a lot of books that have chapters broken down into those kinds of categories, but what they often do, which can be overwhelming for me as someone who struggles with decision paralysis and kind of, you know, not diagnosed, but possibly like, you know, ADHD or ADD, it gives you one spell. It focuses you. It gives you something that is achievable and directed in each of the category. This is how this is this kind of a spell, and this is how you do it. And then I'm going to specifically turn to the lead-ins to a couple of those spell chapters to show you the things that I underlined when I read it that I thought were really great. And especially if someone's just coming into this practice and you don't know where they're getting a lot of their information, these are the things that I really thought were great. So the love magic chapter, it's going to lead you into doing a kind of a love spell, but here's the kind of focus, here's where it's guiding that spell. If we want to attract something like love, we must first become a beacon of it, or at the very least do everything we can to adjust our frequency so we're it uses that vibrational stuff, vibrating in resonance with the frequency of love. So if you want to attract love, you need to become a presence of love, and that's going to be the focus of the spell. It's not going to be like some of these teen spell books where it's going to be, you know, making the person like me, and that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about responsible magic. Let's look at healing magic, and I'm probably talking really fast, I'm sorry. When you're going to do a healing magic spell, the lead into that is noting the number one rule of healing magic is that energy follows the path of least resistance. This means that healing magic should be something that is done in concert with good old Western medicine. Trust me, I avoid going to the doctor like most witches avoid church. I have had things go wrong. I have been misdiagnosed. I have lost people during medical procedures, and I have seen people I love wither away in a nursing home. It takes a lot to get me to see a doctor, but one thing the spirits have taught me over the years is that they always want to use the fastest route toward the end goal. 99% of the time, Western medicine is the fastest way to do that. This is to say that if you're working with a physician, don't stop or forego treatment because you cast a spell or had energy healing performed. Healing magic works best when it can ride on the back of traditional treatments. It is always better to have ensorcelled the antibiotics than to never have taken them at all. So, you know, maybe this will rub some people the wrong way that, you know, or in that realm of green witch that is against all intervention. I really don't have much patience for that. Apologies if that offends anyone. But, you know, that's my take. And if you're afraid or have fears that that kind of voice is going to be going to a young, impressionable person, which would be a concern for me, then I think something like this, I think this is the kind of stuff in a book that you want to kind of, you know, guide a young person toward. Let's look at the protection magic chapter, and you can see the theme growing here. This is talking about protection magic because you're going to do some, you're going to do a protection oil. There's some protection incense. It's got some recipes in here. But here's the lead in to what protection magic entails. Let's get one thing straight as well. Magic only works when you get out of its way. You could cover yourself in protection sigils and have a sparkling daily practice. But if you surround yourself with shady people, your life is going to be full of shady activity, right? So again, that's why I think this is really good. I mean, it is kind of essentially a beginner's book. I think it's a really good beginner's book. You know, if I had like, you know, a 19-year-old nephew who was asking me about this stuff, I ain't gonna go tell him to read The Spiral Dance by Starhawk, you know. Even for any younger person, that might just sound a little too old-fashioned. I think this is a good gateway. It's not a book I'm gonna keep, but I'm glad I have the knowledge of it. And now I'm gonna mention a couple of things. I don't know what Devin Hunter's, you know, practice lineages or much other things about this person. I do believe, and I may be wrong, but I do believe I saw a mention of using the word smudge and smudging in here. I'm never going to assume the worst and think that that person has appropriated anything, but you know, if that's a concern for you, then I think you should do a little more homework. There's also some of the practices, not practices, but some of the spell workings and the magical creating that happens here, some of it has a root in hoodoo, and you know, some of my practice does as well because of people that I've learned bits and pieces from along the way. But you know, if you really want to look into that more, you know, before you recommend or look at the book, you know, that depends on where your level of comfort or discomfort is. So yeah, so I'm going to give this one away, or, you know, I got to say, giving magical books away is a little bit tricky because I'm of the understanding that some places we might regularly donate things might see titles like this and throw them away. So I'm going to find an alternative way. So again, did this one have an index? Let me just check, because that's always one of my pet peeves. This one doesn't have an index, but you know, it's kind of laid out in an organized way. I don't think you need it. This is another Llewellyn book. And again, my beef with a lot of Llewellyn's book is the way that they describe them doesn't always match the contents. Only in one case have I read a Llewellyn book that I thought was a horrible book. Mostly it's expectations, what they tell me the book is, and you know, what doesn't work. It's either like not at the practice level they described, or something's just off. So again, I am making these videos because I don't think there's enough information on the titles, and you know, not everyone is in the position to be the kind of impulse shopper I was for a while. I was able to do that without putting myself in a hole. That was a privilege of mine, and I acknowledge that. And yeah, that's about it. Again, I'm not trying to be negative. I probably sounded like I was more excited about this book than I was about the aromatherapy book I talked about yesterday. But on the other hand, I'm giving this book away, and the other book is one I'm keeping. So, you know, books are very subjective and personal, and some of them have their moment and then they move on. So that's it. Take care, and thanks for watching.